Here I will be presenting all my process. I will start with the first 3 days. I didn't know where to start, so I started with a sketchbook. I wrote level 3, breaking the ice, nothing really fancy and egg. I was just playing around, nothing fancy. But I started making notes about borders. I was kind of interested in framing objects where the illustration work or not. I think that is quite interesting. I decided to leave the next pages white so I can write ideas, things that I need to buy, putting all there. So I can have a place where I can go back and look for it. Here we have a very simple page. I was thinking about the sea and summer vacations to how I try to organize the page in a balanced way and make some splash, play along with the idea of having a fanzine and how it will look like. I like the rough borders particularly. This is a more relaxed page. I create like a swimming pool character and I make it like a doll. And the other one is the idea that I like the most. The swimming pool seems to be more like a labyrinth rather than a swimming pool, and I wanted to have different characters around the swimming pool. As you can see, I have somebody sitting, somebody swimming, is a more complex illustration, but I haven't been able to develop the idea in a more sophisticated way. Now we have the character again. I add this puppetry thing in order to make it move. So it was kind of fun actually. I did it with also the idea to have a moon and moving the moon. So that was the main idea for this. This is just an exercise. I did a drawing from a man and I simplified it. It's nothing really fancy about this. Next pages are very interesting. This is also the idea of people in the beach swimming. Nothing really fancy. I like it, but it's not that interesting. What I like the most is the small characters filling the page. The next one. This is also very unique for me. I try a different perspective. I use a picture to capture what it will look like somebody swimming from below, and I came with the idea to have a translucent page on top of it, as you can see here. I have different models. I did different um, drawings of this based on the same, and I use this charcoal to paint it with it. Here I was trying to create the background at the back. It was lighter, but I couldn't actually create this more subtle atmosphere and bring the character at front. So here I went back to the sea. I don't know why I found this translucent idea quite interesting. This requires a lot of work. It's very difficult to get in the acetates. So I create the next day a copy. This I create the hand for the other drawing and another character swimming in translucent paper. It was quite difficult to make, but I think it will work later on. This is the day 4 and 5. I use a different sketchbook to get my ideas around what I consider childhood and this feeling of melancholy. I did rough drawings and I went back to the idea of the swimming pool and the labyrinth. As you can see, there are different type of labyrinths, a different type of people swimming. It's not very clear what I have in mind, so I think I need to elaborate this idea much longer. And I have a lot of problem with perspective. I'm not so sure the perspective work in this type of situation for me, but well, I keep working on it. I went back to the original sketchbook and I stick the other drawings just to have it in as a reference, in a loose paper. So I just cut it and pasted there. And I moved back to the original acetate. I paint on the acetate, I create a background. I really love this effect, and I think I will be working on this for a diorama later on. This idea, I think, is a fantastic idea. I think you can create several layers with this. I use a base Indian ink, and I think it worked well. It gives you this feeling of a watercolor on the acetate. Here you have a different perspective. I create like a silhouette and a boat, and all of them with different sizes to create like a mystery. This was done with acrylic, and is very opaque. I think it will work well if I decide to use the acetate for cyanotypes later on. So I think this is a fantastic way of doing it. Another idea that I thought at this stage is perhaps if I decide to do a fanzine, I could use some pop-up book techniques in order to bring the hand into the picture. But this is also an idea that I would like to explore later on. But it seems that the idea of holidays in the sea is getting stronger. Here we are going to talk about what I did day 5, 6, and 7. I went to the beach and took some pictures. Here are just two examples in Polaroid. No, not something in particular. And I start drawing and have some reflection of what was happening around me, what I wanted to say. Later on, I went back to these characters and small frames. I think this is gonna be really important later on, the frames. I also wanted to explore deepness and color, create more like abstract. Here we see somebody jumping into the sea, and a more colorful other page with a girl exploring, and you can see that I cut the an space. You can see the next page, and I try to highlight the woman a little bit. See, again, you can see the sea and a feet. This is more like an storytelling time. I'm not so sure this worked well, but I think that captures what I was trying to achieve, this more fantasy world, dream worlds under the sea. And this is a rough sketch that I did in Procreate. I wanted to have this statue, but really being a mermaid, like a metaphor or something. I realized that it was too in the center. I wanted to perhaps moving to the sides. I also think I need more nature here, more something more interesting than just trees, more uh, flowers or things like that. Um, you see, this area, the perspective is not right and is just plain, and perhaps moving the mermaid so you can see better. So this sketch is not finished yet. It's not even close to finish. And I think I need to work more in how it's designed, the perspective. If I want this to be included in a book or magazine or something like that, it is not interesting enough. Oh, and something that I didn't like is the division. The sea is too much sea, and I think it's boring. Perhaps I need to move the sky better and divide the page differently. You see, I think I need to add more vegetation at the top. Days 8, 9, and 10, I started with a simple illustration about somebody hanging in a swimming pool. This is based on a vintage picture. I tried to add the sea after that, so maybe the sky would have been better. So I stopped working on it, but this has the general idea what I wanted to create for this. Now these sketches come from the integration of different vintage pictures. I wanted to create like a dream. I'm not sure if I've succeeded really, but particularly I like this sea monster. I think I need to work more in giving it the sense of being water, but I like the idea of people, tiny little people on the monster. I think it's kind of fun. And later on, I create this with graphite. This is supposed to be somebody swimming from that perspective, but it didn't work. So I will use this later on to produce a different illustration. If I need to be honest, this is a work of several days. These were created in a translucent paper. It's a vellum paper. If you use washes, the paper doesn't take water well. But if you use craft paper, you can actually work a little bit better there. And I make like a paste with graphite or charcoal and gum arabic, and you can see the texture here, and it creates like a beautiful highlights. I think this is the best part of this work. This was inspired by the Polaroid that you saw at the beginning, and I wanted to create a lot of them. To create a wall full of pictures, I wanted them to be small, and this translucentness of this paper give me the sense of foggy days, and I wanted to get this to work on it. So I cut a lot of small pieces and I started to work on it. When I realized that this paper is really difficult to work with, it doesn't take water well, and the experiment didn't go as planned. I used the very softy drawings that I did before to experiment with this paste I created with charcoal and graphite and gum arabic. And it went terribly wrong for the first drawing. For the second drawing, I have a different experience. I think the brush and my experience with the other one make me use it better. This is charcoal and no graphite. I think gum arabic and charcoal work much better. So I think was a more successful experiment. Here I added the drawings that I did before, and they were the most successful ones. Here I came with the idea how to present it. This is not the final one, but I think I thought it will work well to add all them in a succession and put some type of wood or a line to sustain them, to link them, so they were hanging rather than to be placed on the wall.